Oh,
Good evening. Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Curry County's Zoom Candidate Forum for Brookings City Council. I am Georgia Nowlin, tonight's moderator. I'd like to introduce our voter service co-chairs, Charlie Alexander and Mary Jane LaBelle. Mary Jane will be co-hosting the Zoom along with League member Colleen Bunn. Charlie will be our timer. This is the second of 4 forums that will be recorded and available on channel 182, currycountyvoices.com, lwvcurry.org, and vote411.org via YouTube. This broadcast of the October 6, 2020 League Candidate Forum are for the candidates running for Brookings City Council and has been furnished as a public service by the League of Women Voters of Curry County. Any reproduction, recording, transcript, or other use of this program without written permission is prohibited. Let me begin with the League of Women Voters mission statement. The League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization, encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League does not support or oppose candidates running for elected office. Any voting person can be a member of the League of Women Voters. We have both men and women members and invite you to join. Because of COVID-19, this is a virtual candidate forum, a first for the League of Women Voters of Curry County. Our thanks to Paul Addis of Coos Bay Library and a fellow community website partner of mine for his assistance with Zoom. Candidates tonight are for Brookings City Council position number 1, Brad Alcorn and Anthony Bond. Brookings City Council position number 2, Diana Cooper and Ed Schreiber. All candidates running for these contested positions have been invited to this forum. Here are some ground rules for tonight's forum. Unless you are asked to speak, please keep yourself on mute. Candidates will be asked to speak in rotating order. Initial speakers have been determined by verbal number drawing. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes for their opening statement. Once that portion is completed, we will go to the question and answer section of the forum. Questions have been collected from the public and League members prior to the forum. You will have 1.5 minutes to respond. Our timer, Charlie, will have Mary Jane put up the 30-second sign on the screen when you have 30 seconds left. When your time is up, a stop sign will come on the screen. Candidates, can you see the signs? Okay, great, thank you. I will now introduce the candidates. Candidate for Brookings City Council position number 1, Brad Alcorn. You need to take yourself off mute, Brad.
Georgia, do you want Brad to speak now? Give his
Yes.
3-minute statement? Okay,
Yes.
Brad.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Okay.
now.
All right. Well, good evening. My name is Brad Alcorn. I'm from Fresno, California, and I am currently the Brookings City Council member in position 1. I'll tell you a little bit about myself first. I am married to Jennifer Alcorn. Jennifer is the executive director for the South Coast Humane Society. She's the lady that you see in all the dog videos if you follow them. Jennifer and I have been married. We've been married for about almost 30 years now. We have 3 kids. One still lives in California. We have a daughter who lives here in Brookings, and I have a son who lives in Gold Beach, and he is currently a Curry County Sheriff's deputy. I spent 35 years with the Fresno Police Department. There I worked positions on the SWAT team as a canine handler and as a homicide detective. My wife was a professional boxer. For those of you that didn't know, she's a 3-time undefeated lightweight champion of the world. And I also managed and trained her. I retired in 2017. We bought our house here in Brookings in 2013. And this was the place that I wanted to retire. We moved here and I took a couple years to decompress. And then I started to think about how I could be an asset to the community. And the first thing I did was I got on the City of Brookings Parks and Recreation Committee. And I learned a lot about city government through that process. The next thing that I did was I got on the Curry County Budget Commission, where I am currently the chair of the Budget Commission. What a learning process that was, and still continues to be. Through that process, I also started to volunteer with the Curry County Sheriff's Department, where I am currently the canine coordinator. I volunteer my services 2 nights a week, where I teach tactics, I train dogs, and do everything related to the Sheriff's Department canine program. In April, I was asked by the mayor to fill a vacancy and be appointed to the city council position due to an illness that one of the council members had. The council voted unanimously to appoint me to that position, and I am in that position now. I initially had no plans on running for office until some of the national issues came up with law enforcement, the George Floyd incident, et cetera. And several members of the community reached out to me and they asked me to run for office. They asked me to run for this position. And that's why I'm running, and that's why I'm here today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anthony, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Bond, and I'm currently running against Brad Alcorn for position 1 on the city council. Most of my background involves military and the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, which I retired from in 2018. I spent a period of time in the United States Marine Corps as a tow gunner, including Operation Desert Storm. I have 4 children, all of which are in the military. Actually, one of which just got out of the Navy and is now residing in Ohio with her new husband. Basically, I'm running for city council mostly because I became upset with the city processes that were involved. Actually, Brad and I have many of the same views in regards to how the council operates and things of that nature. But I'm running in regards to some personal issues that I've had with the homeless and personal issues with the response of the city to some of the projects that they have undertaken that have involved my home and actually many of my other friends. So for those reasons, the reasons why I was running for city council was to actually do something about that. And that's honestly, that's about it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now for the candidates for Brookings City Council position number 2, Diana Cooper. Your turn, 3 minutes.
Okay. So my name is Diana Cooper. I'm running for City Council position number 2. I was born here in Brookings on Pine Street and grew up here. I moved away, I think in 2013, I moved over to Jackson County. I struggled a lot with some addiction and homelessness issues here for many years. And I moved to Jackson County where they had more services and I was able to get into some programs there. And through the programs over there, I became involved in advocacy work and street outreach for the homeless, as well as my introduction to city in Medford was on the Jackson County Homeless Task Force for several years. And that's kind of where I got my introduction to city council and how policies and ordinances are created and how they affect the community and the populations that I work with. So that was my original introduction. I started working for the Rogue Valley YMCA over there several years ago. I worked there up until right before I moved over here last year. And I had a lot of experience there with volunteerism. The YMCA is really big on volunteering. And I also, at the same time, started working at All Care Health, one of the local CCOs that manages organ dollars. And mostly I learned a lot there about how Medicaid works, how Medicare works, how they interact, and just kind of how some of those decisions are made on a state level. And then I also worked for a period of time at the Family Nurturing Center. I was on the board of directors for the Family Nurturing Center, and then I began working there, helping with the farm program for parents who have a struggle with addiction and are involved in the child welfare system. So I had a lot of interaction with child welfare and DHS as a whole, and how their policies work and how their programs affected my clients. We moved back over here. I'm married to Matt Cooper. He's a home care worker here in town. He's also going to be a community health worker in the next month. And we were married in 2007. We met in high school, and we've been together ever since. We have 4 kids. Ada is 13, and Eric just turned 11. Tad is 9, and Noah is 7. So they're quite a handful. We moved back over here last year in July. Matt moved ahead of me and got work over here, and then I moved over. And I didn't really intend on going to work for a little while. I had just graduated college and just left both of my jobs at the Y and at All Care, and I kind of needed a reprieve. And so I stopped working for a little while, and then COVID hit, and I that was my motivation to, oh, it looks like I'm probably about done. Anyway, that was my motivation to go back to work, and that's where I'm at now.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Ed Schreiber, also for position number 2.
Thanks. Yes, little bio for me. I was born in Long Beach, California. I was raised in a little town of Cardiff, California, which I think our moderator at one point lived in. From there, I graduated high school there. I went to school at Fresno State, where Brad is from. So I feel like some camaraderie on this little forum here. Graduated with a communications degree in 1984. Went back to my hometown in San Diego County, started a business there, started a family, and then come around 2004, decided to move my family out of the craziness of Southern California and up to beautiful Brookings, Oregon. So we've been here 16 years, raised 4 kids up here. The oldest is 30 now, living in Texas. The youngest is 17, still at home I'm counting the months. But yeah, so we moved here and have really enjoyed living here. Continued the business out of my home, bought a home big enough to operate a business out of. Volunteered for virtually the whole time we've been here. Assisted nonprofits. Just had a real busy life. And with COVID, my travel business is what I do. COVID has definitely put a crimp in that business. And I agree with Brad, the situation in the world, especially as regarding law enforcement, is a big deal. And I'm very concerned about that. One of the reasons I moved here was because it was a safe, clean environment for families. And I want to see that continue. So that's one of the major reasons that I'm running is supporting law enforcement. I get very concerned when I see people online or even marching to the street in a rally saying defund the police and trying to restructure that. I'm a big supporter of law enforcement. It's my #1 campaign issue is let's keep Brookings police healthy, fully funded, fully functional, fully prepared for any contingency that might happen. Also, I feel very strongly about supporting local businesses. I want to see an environment where they can succeed, where they can, well, a healthy community needs healthy businesses. And I just see that as an essential for our community. So as a city councilor, I want to support local businesses. Also, I see a real important issue. We have big issues in this community, which are transportation, affordable housing, healthcare, things that require more involvement than just our own little town of 6,000 people. So part of my campaign is about fostering regional cooperation with the county, with other communities within our region, even down in Del Norte County, trying to put together workable solutions for the things that we would really like to see happen in our town and in our region.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going into the question and answer portion of the forum. Questions collected from the public and league members have been screened by the voter service co-chairs for duplications. Each candidate running for the same office will be given an opportunity to answer that question. We'll now present the questions that have been submitted for answers. Again, candidates, you will have 1.5 minutes to respond. So what I'm going to do is I am going to be asking the questions in rotating order, and starting with the first question, I'm going to start with you, Brad, since you're the incumbent here, and then I'm going to have your opponent, Anthony, answer the same question, and then Diane, and then Ed. So here's the question. The first question is, what are your thoughts about the city developing an indoor swimming pool? Brad?
So an indoor swimming pool has been discussed, and I would certainly be all for that. I think it'd be a great asset to the community. The issues would be how it would be funded and where it would go. We have had some discussions about maybe covering the current pool that we have. One of the problems in Brookings is there's not a lot of land that we're able to develop. We don't have a lot of property available for those types of projects. It has been discussed. I would certainly be supportive of it if we could perhaps get some private funding and also look at matching some funding from the city if we were capable of doing that. But yeah, I'm all for it. I think it would be a big benefit to our community. I think it would be great for kids as well. And I think it would definitely get a lot of use here.
Okay, thank you. Anthony?
Well, I don't mean to parrot Brad, but I also happen to agree that it would be nice to have one in the community. I really think that they should be covering the existing one that we have, at least for right now. But if funding can be allocated or received from the public as a joint venture or something similar along those lines, I think it would be a benefit. And I think that if we could just find a place to actually put one, it needs to be done.
Okay, thank you. Diana?
Yeah, I'm a really big proponent of children learning how to swim at a young age. I think statistics show if children don't learn to swim by 3rd grade, they often don't ever learn to swim. And one of the reasons why I enjoyed the YMCA so much in Medford is because they had such a huge variety of swim lessons there. So all of my kids learned to swim at a young age. I do know that our pool offers swim lessons. And so I support an indoor pool for many reasons, especially considering our climate over here. And I would think that with public-private partnerships, that an indoor pool, you know, I understand the lack of land and the availability. So I would think that with a public-private partnership, land would become available in that way through private partnerships, and also building what we already have into an indoor pool may also be an option as well.
Oops. Okay, thank you. Ed?
Yeah, that's the big key is that partnership that you've been talking about. Maintaining a pool is not a cheap thing to do. Maintaining a pool facility is even more expensive. I know the pool that we have now that's only open during the summer, that's a net drain on the city budget, but people are happy to do it because we're doing something good for the community. When you get to a new building and a new pool, that's going to be a major budget issue. So it would have to be, funded long-term outside the city. I don't think the city wants to spend a whole $1 million to build a pool and keep it supported at, $300,000 or $400,000 a year. I don't think we could get support from that from the voters, but it would be a nice thing to have if it was privately funded.
Okay, thank you. All right. The second question I have for the candidates, and let's go do it this way. Let's just work backwards. Ed, I'm going to hit you up again, and then to Diana, and then to Anthony, and then to Brad. So this is the question. Are you aware that the city provides no funding for the activity center, also known as the senior center? What is your feeling about having the city provide some financial support to it?
Well, of course, we could provide more funding for a lot more organizations, a lot of nonprofit organizations. That's always an option. But my view is that the city is best served by doing a few things really, really well. And that's police protection, that's fire protection, that's provide clean water, provide good sewage and infrastructure, good roads, things like that. I've worked a lot in the nonprofit organization, nonprofit groups, and like you have, Georgia, not very many are supported by municipalities. So I wouldn't necessarily be against it, but I think we have to be careful when we're supporting private nonprofits. We don't want to open the door and have everybody coming to the city for their funding. Nonprofits are expected to get their own money. I am a president of a nonprofit educational organization. We don't come to the city for money. We go out and we raise it, and we promote ourselves. And I think that's the way that works best.
Okay, thank you. Diana.
Yeah, I also agree that nonprofits do have different pots of money than cities have available to them. And it does make sense to reach out in that capacity. I think if there was a long-term sustainable plan that the council was in agreement on, using funding that isn't necessarily available for everybody, but like the marijuana tax revenue or something of that nature that has more flexibility. I think if there was a long-term sustainable plan and there was a huge push behind that, especially in a community with an aged population that we have, I could certainly see voting for that if the council came together on that kind of a decision.
Okay, thank you. Anthony, you and your friend.
Yeah, I need Brad to help me trade my dog. But anyway, I happen to be against the city helping to fund any nonprofit organization. The point of the nonprofit organization is to fund itself. And I understand that we have a heavy senior citizen population in the city, but that's best served with proper law enforcement and the services that are already provided by the city.
Okay, thank you. Brad.
So yes, I am aware that the city does not provide funding for the senior center. We haven't had any recent discussions about providing any funding to the senior center, and I'm currently not aware of a circumstance where we are capable or in a position to reallocate money in that direction. It doesn't mean, however, that in the future, there may be an opportunity to partner in that arena as well. But right now, in the current state of the city, the funding isn't currently available.
Okay, thank you. Now I have a few individual questions, and the first one I have is going to be for Diana Cooper. And the question for you, Diana, is, can you identify the small changes you would like to make that would offset developer costs within the city in order to increase building projects?
Yeah, so I mean, the first step I see on city council is meeting with local developers to determine which of those, which of our city policies are restricting that growth. That's typically the way I've seen it done. We do have I know we have some system development charge fees that can be delayed until, or offset, but delayed until occupancy for low income housing projects. And this is kind of one area that is sort of a small change that can, may not affect the city too much fiscally, especially, when they're getting that funding back, but it does promote the growth that we would need. That's just kind of one small change. There's many more. I'm not sure which of those are applicable to Brookings at the moment. And so that's why I think that there would need to be some sort of collaboration with local developers, especially around some of the specifics that I've heard from Medford and Ashland City Councils and Eagle Point. So that's.
Okay. Ed, did you want to respond to that question or pass?
I'll only say that I have spoken to Janelle Howard, the city manager, about the fees. They seem to be in line with other cities. There's always some negotiation that can go on with a major development. But the only major development we can really see on the horizon is the Borax project. When that opens up, then there's going to be some land, and there'll be a heavy negotiation on land use. But I don't know that there's any room right now to mess too much with the SDCs. So something you can always talk about, something you can work on, but nothing I would say to lay out right now, here's what we're going to do. I don't think a city council person can do that.
Okay, thank you. The next question actually is for you, Ed, now. And the question is, lawbreakers should be encouraged to leave. How should Brookings help a lawbreaker to leave? And what policies do you plan to put in place to ensure they do not come back?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question. Lawbreakers, people that break the law, are usually, they either are cited or they're taken off to jail. So I'm not sure I really understand the question.
Okay, it looked like it was a quote somehow. I'm not sure why. Lawbreakers should be encouraged to leave. I guess that was not a quote of yours, or.
I don't know.
That's fine.
Lawbreaker, if you're breaking the law, then, you should be cited, I would think. I mean, if I break the law, run a stoplight or something, I don't think anybody's going to let me, want me out of town. But if I commit a major crime, I think I'm probably going to be invited to go spend a night in Gold Beach. So.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not sure. It was just one of the questions that was addressed to you. Diana, did you want to respond to that at all?
No, I think that was sort of a interesting question, and I think Ed's exactly right. We already have systems in place to deal with these issues with law enforcement, and we have a wonderful law enforcement system here. So
okay.
I can't imagine there being any other answer.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have another individual question, and this is for Anthony Bond. Anthony, from your perspective, what are the needs of the homeless population in Brookings and why?
The needs of the homeless population in Brookings, from my perspective, a lot of it needs to be, let me see, how do I put this? We need to discourage the transient population that's coming up here in the summertime. And by discouraging, I mean enforcing the laws that we already have in place in recognition of the Boise decision. But as far as the actual needs of the homeless population, I'm not interested in that at this particular point in time. I'm more interested in removing the homeless population from Brookings.
Okay. Brad, did you want to respond to that question as well?
Sure, I will. So the needs of the homeless community right now are addiction counseling, mental health support, and also facilitating those who are financially distressed, that getting them into a situation where they can get a job, and facilitating that. That's why I'm a big proponent of the community resource officer position and partnering up with some of our advocacy groups so we can get that officer to connect those resources to the specific people that need them, and then either that or get those people to the resources that they need. And by doing that, I think it will help reduce the current homeless population.
Great. Thank you. So the next question is sort of in a similar vein. And what I'll do then is go ahead and have you, Diana, answer the question. And then I'll have Ed follow. And we'll have Brad and then Anthony. And the question is, what, if anything, should the city do to provide shelter, food, healthcare, or other services for the unhoused?
You said shelter, food. What was the rest of the question?
Healthcare or other services for the unhoused.
Okay. So I can probably speak more directly to the shelter. I don't know that there's necessarily a lot that the city itself can do to provide this, other than, when the organizations come together with the funding and the appropriate, manpower, the city can, I don't know if you guys can see me very well. It says my connection's unstable. The city can come together with those organizations like St. Timothy's and the Task Force and the Curry Homeless Coalition to better understand, I guess, how they can support the project moving forward, especially when it comes to like conditional use permits or special use permits for buildings in town that may be used as a shelter. They've already done quite a bit with allowing the churches to open and allow for the 3-person parking. I don't know that they can necessarily do any more in that area. That's sort of an individual private decision with the churches. When it comes to food and healthcare and things like that, and even childcare, I want to throw that in there. There are a lot of things that the city can do. The city of Medford provided $100,000 through their marijuana tax program to help with these programs. So there is a lot that the city can do to help provide.
Okay, thank you. Ed, would you like to answer the question? Would you
Yeah,
like me to repeat it?
No, I just basically about the homeless or unhoused is a generic term. I don't really like that, because really the homeless have only one thing in common: they don't have a home. And we shouldn't really lump everybody into that same basket, that same category. Some we can help and some really don't want help. Diana has requested that the city open up parks and public spaces to homeless camping. I think that's the wrong approach. I disagree with that. Brookings residents and businesses have a lot of compassion when I've been talking to them, but they don't want homeless camping any more than they're seeing it now. Taxpayers spend $440,000 a year maintaining our parks, and they don't want a tent city as part of our environment, our park environment. Local businesses and residents are tired of the transient drug users, seem to have no regard for the community. And I think if we really want to be compassionate to people who have the most need, we need to admit that many people are better served by going elsewhere, like Diana was when she got help over in Jackson County. Keeping them in Brookings is not necessarily the most compassionate thing we can do. That being said, I would support regional cooperation again with the county, with other communities in our region to meet some of the needs that can be met without going to Coos Bay, Grants Pass, Medford, or elsewhere.
Okay, thank you. Brad.
So this is obviously a very hot topic in our community, and it's something that the current city council talks about on a regular basis. And I don't feel that the city should be paying for a homeless camp. However, that being said, I talked to many people in the community, and like Ed said, I personally am compassionate as well, but this is a very divided topic. Half of the community very much feels like the homeless take advantage of our community, and that they're upset with the way the community is being treated. The other half, they want to be compassionate, and they want to, they want to provide help. So push come to shove on this issue, I would say put it up to the voters. If the voters want to vote for a homeless camp, then it should be their prerogative. They should be able to vote for that. And if the community votes no, then we're done talking about it and we move on.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. And Ed, could you mute yourself?
Oh, okay.
Along what Brad and Ed both discussed, and Diana, I have a lot of respect for the work that you do, but understand this. In my house, I have now had an average of 3 incidents since 2013 with homeless people walking about my property, threatening the people living in my home. I've had weapons pulled on me. I've had individuals fighting in my front yard. Just a week ago, we had a fire in front of my house because they decided they wanted to have a campfire in the rain. I don't have a problem with the homeless people per se. I have a problem with the violence that comes along with them, the nudity downtown. And specifically, I had an individual who decided to expose himself and urinate in front of me in the drive-thru at Burger King. I mean, this is getting out of hand. The homeless situation is out of hand. And it's to a point now where obviously we do not have mental health capacity here for these people here in the city of Brookings. We're not going to have it because that's not the nature of our community, and they need to be moved on. Not putting them in parks, not putting them in city properties, state properties. They just need to be moved on.
Okay, thank you. For the next question, I'm actually going to have begin answering, and then I'm going to jump to Diana, and then I'm going to have Ed, and then I'm going to have Brad. So the question I have is, how is the city planning for post-disaster resiliency, fire, earthquake, major storms? Anthony.
So just going off the last city council meeting, we were dealing with, the city council was dealing with an issue with emergency preparedness and messaging from the radio station on the local Brookings Tower. And the general consensus that I got from the council was, yes, they extended their lease out on that tower for another year. But in 5 years, they had yet to accomplish the ability to simply transmit an emergency message to the population. There's a whole other issue with political bias on the radio and how many people are actually listening to it. And regardless of that, it had not been attended to. I honestly need to review the emergency plans for the city that they actually have in place. But just on the basis of that one thing, I say there needs to be a full review from top to bottom with the city on their responses to emergency situations.
Okay, thank you. Diana?
Yeah, I was at that city council meeting and did hear that they're, after 1 year that KCIW will be removing the tower, or removing it off of the tower, I should say. So I do not know what the city's emergency management plan is in the event of a fire here or another, a different kind of emergency. Yeah, I can say that I haven't read an emergency management plan, so I'm not sure.
Okay. Ed.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I haven't read it either. It's really an important issue. I've been here through the tsunami. I've been here through the Checo bar fire. Neither of those had a huge impact and loss of life and loss of property within the city. But I agree that it should be reviewed. It should be looked at, that we need to have a plan. I'm sure we do. Brad's up next. Maybe he can tell us more about it, but I have not spent the time to really see where we are on that issue.
Okay, thank you. Brad.
So the state of Oregon and Curry County have designated people that are in those positions. And basically the city of Brookings is going to follow that emergency plan. But one of the things that I want to share with you that I plan on doing when I'm elected is one of the first things I'm going to do is make a motion to create a liaison between the Brookings City Council and the County of Curry. And I also want to extend that liaison position to Gold Beach and Port Orford. And I'm going to volunteer for that position. I think I've created enough relationships with our county leaders that that I can sit in a room with them and we can exchange ideas. And when we have an emergency, it would be nice to know what their expectations are, what their plans are, and it would be nice for them to know what ours are. I don't think the county should tell the city what to do, and I don't think the city should tell the county what to do. But I do feel that if the city can work with the county, we can have a safer community from that.
Okay, thank you. So for this next question, let's go ahead and Ed, I'll have you go first, and then Anthony, Brad, and Diana. Okay, so the question is, the Brookings Housing Needs Assessment carried out by South Coast Development Council, Inc., and submitted in October 2017 stated that 452 additional subsidized rental units were needed within the study area. How is Brookings Harbor coming with that? What has been done since 2017 and what is going to be done in the future? Oh, you're on mute now. Sorry.
I can't speak to the assessment or to what the city's city's done on that. I can't speak to the affordable housing issue, and it's a tough situation because it affects both working class residents and businesses that employ them. And as far as I see, there's no quick, easy solution for that. I think we all realize that not everyone who lives in a high land value community, not everybody that works in a high land value community can actually afford to live in that same community. That's rather simple economics. In other places that I've lived, people that, live in the resort areas can live there, and the people that work there commute from somewhere else. That's not unusual. That's the way it is all over the world. I did talk recently to a local land developer in Dawson Track, and he expressed that, it all has to pencil out. Investments have to pencil out. And when you have high land values and you have high building costs, unless you have subsidies from governments or other entities, it's going to be really hard to build affordable housing here. And there's not much room left. Janelle Howard, the city manager, told me until Borax is developed, it's just not going to be easy. So again, regional cooperation where land is perhaps cheaper, maybe in Gold Beach, in the county, that might be the best approach to go to try to work together to get more affordable housing for the Brookings area.
Okay, thank you. Anthony?
Yeah, I don't really have much to say on this exact subject other than I happen to believe in the market forces. And bottom line is right now, Brookings is a high property value area. And, not everybody can live here. And it's that simple. And, if I probably would not have moved here had it been in any other way. And because of that, I honestly have no intention of voting in anything that would devaluate our property values or make this more affordable housing quote thing. Let the market deal with it.
Thank you. Brad.
So when you step into the city council seat, there's a big learning curve when you do that. And I think there's also a lot of misperception about what a city council member can affect and not affect. And sure, there is absolutely a need for affordable housing in our community. It would allow nurses and police officers and other, first responder folks to have, affordable places to live as well. But the reality is, as a city council member, there's really limited things that I can do to help that. And part of it is there is not a lot of land to be developed within the city limits. Now, the county does have accessible areas, and it is possible that some of those areas could eventually develop into affordable housing opportunities. And there may be a situation that could be explored where the city could do some partnering with the county. And again, I go back to that liaison position I'd like to create and be part of. That, those would be discussions that we'd be having within that position.
Okay, thank you. Diana.
Yeah, so I actually have very thoroughly read that needs assessment and had some follow-up with that. We haven't done anything that I'm aware of with that assessment yet on a city or county level. There is some movement more on county, and there is definitely more land available on county level. So, but what I will say is that the development of multifamily housing units is our best bet here in Brookings for expanding housing, due to the fact that, first of all, it tends to be cheaper to construct, and so it's cheaper to rent. One of the things that I try to push is the census. I hope everybody here did their census. And then, of course, to get our HUD funding, the point in time count that we do every January that we'll be doing again here in Brookings. And the reason why the census and this point in time count is so important is because we typically get a lot of participation from people who have higher incomes. And so due to that, our funding here in Curry County is very low because we can't create a picture of that need on a state level and on a federal level. So the census is really important. The point in time count is really important. And also cities can, and this is a little bit outside of housing, but cities can support childcare efforts to assist working families. So they're able to either two parents working or one parent working and have that dedication so that they can pay their rent.
Okay, thank you. All right. I think for the next round of questions, we're going to go back, and Brad, I'm going to have you answer Anthony, Diana, and Ed. And this question is, when Borax Rio Tinto developed the Lone Ranch subdivision, do you see risk of erosion due to the clearing of that large a site? What things can be done to minimize those risks?
Well, there's always risk. And I know in Dawson Track right now, on the oceanfront properties there is some erosion issues with some of those properties. That is part of the environment where we live. Those types of things are going to happen. So in terms of risk with that particular project, the project developers are going to have to really show some critical evidence of mechanisms that they're willing to put in place, that they're willing to pay for, to ensure that that is at a very minimum, with the understanding that that those things happen here in this environment.
Okay, thank you. Anthony.
Yeah, to me, that it's a pretty simple process. They either provide an appropriate erosion control measures, and obviously they'll have to have engineers that prove it. But I'm not necessarily concerned with the erosion control of the project itself, as long as those measures are enforced. And to be honest with you, with the current environment, I have no concerns over that being enforced.
Okay, thank you. Diana?
I actually agree with both of them, but I do think that we should have a strong enforcement on those because, I mean, we're talking about, you know, land and that we've all kind of, well, I don't know about you guys, but that we've grown up with and that we've enjoyed, and we want to keep the land healthy. And so I do think that those, you know, that those are in place for a reason and that they should be strictly followed up with. And so, but we do have a lot of risk here in Curry County. There's a lot of salt in the air. There's a lot of erosion everywhere. So, but enough to mitigate the bigger risks so that we don't run into issues down the road with environmental impacts.
Okay, thank you. Ed?
Yeah, it was funny. I was talking to Bob Gardner down in Oxford Street today, and his family has lived here for 5 generations, and they've been involved in road construction and landslides and, you know, all kinds of nightmares over the generations, things that happen in Curry County. All I can say is we need, or Borax needs to hire some really, really good engineers because it's going to be a challenge. But I'm confident good engineering can solve it. As long as you don't skimp there, I think we'll be okay.
Okay, thank you. For the next round of question, or actually the next question, I should say, why don't we have Anthony, why don't you go first, and then Brad, and did I already do this order? I'm sorry, Anthony, Ed, Diane, and then Brad. How's that? Okay. Over the past 6 months, there have been and continue to be Black Lives Matter protests around the country. Can you identify ways in which shifting certain responsibilities of the police in our community to other agencies, along with the matching funds for those responsibilities, would be beneficial to our homeless, at-risk, low-income populations? Oh, you're still muted. I'm not hearing you.
Let's try it that way.
Sounds good.
Okay. Can you repeat this question again?
Okay, sure. Over the past 6 months, there have been and continue to be Black Lives Matter protests around the country. Can you identify ways in which shifting certain responsibilities of the police in our community to other agencies, along with the matching funds for those responsibilities, would be beneficial to our homeless, at-risk, or low-income populations?
Absolutely not. I would not shift anything from our police department as it's currently set up to anyone else. Our police department is funded to the best of my ability and the best of my knowledge, and they do a very fine job at what they do. I don't understand the question as it relates to Black Lives Matter events and the homeless, but neither one of those are concerns that I would consider altering our current police profile on to deal with. The city council voted in and approved a community resource officer, and I happen to agree with their assessment on that. And I mean, essentially, I really don't understand how that relates to the Black Lives Matter issue.
Okay, thank you. Ed? You're muted.
There, okay. Yeah, it's a long disjointed question, but I would agree with Tony on not shifting police funds. If we're going to fund other things regarding homeless, disadvantaged people, let's do it separately. And that's what we did when City Council passed a $3 surcharge for a community service officer, a community resource officer, and we're going to try that and see how that goes. But taking money away from the police at a time when dangers abound. I know in Oregon, we have 30% more property crime than the national average. Of the most crime-ridden towns or big cities, over 10,000 people in Oregon. A lot of them are in our vicinity. Grants Pass, Roseburg, Coos Bay. Medford is third on the list for high crime rate in the state of Oregon. All these places are too close for comfort. And if we think we're immune to that in Brookings, Oregon, I think that's a dangerous way to think. I think we need to be prepared for more crime coming here. And the last thing I would want to do is shift funds away from the police department.
Thank you, Diana.
Yeah, so I work really closely with Community Resource Officer, Interim Community Resource Officer Johnson, and Chief McCrae in the work that I do. And I am fortunate enough to be able to have conversations about this with them. And I will say that I think that there's definitely an opportunity to shift further resources that come down the pike later and that we may need into social services. You know, I've definitely made it no secret that police officers aren't the ones equipped to deal with social service calls or social service issues, including those related to the homeless. I don't know that I'm necessarily worried about a bunch of crime coming in. We do have some of that because we are on the 101. But as far as the population that we're dealing with now here in Brookings at proper as it stands, we're in desperate need of social services, and some of that can be mitigated through funding from the police department. And I don't think that that's a wild, and crazy thought. I think that that's happening all over the country. And we're seeing that happen in a positive manner with the Whitebird Clinic. But social service providers are equipped to deal with long-term, they have the long-term capabilities for case management, which is something that a community resource officer doesn't have. And so that is something we can work in tandem with officers like I do already now. So.
Okay, thank you. Brad.
So I don't support shifting funding away from law enforcement, and I don't support defunding of law enforcement here in the city of Brookings. That may be appropriate for other cities, but here in Brookings, I don't support that, and I'll tell you why. We currently have 16 officers. We have 1 vacancy, and that's not enough. And when I say it's not enough, I want you to understand that we are providing the only law enforcement agency in the county that is 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have a minimum staffing to meet each day. And when you factor in sick time, you factor in time off, you factor injured officers, you factor in training time. A lot of times we have one officer working alone at night, and we shouldn't be doing that. We're actually violating standards in the industry, I think, by doing that. I have a couple of ideas that might help to provide additional resources to our department at a lower cost. One of those ideas is to explore maybe looking at some guys like me, 30-year plus guys that move here, retire. They have good credentials. Maybe we can hire them on a part-time basis or a contract basis. And what they can do is they can come in, fill some shifts, backfill some shifts. We can get our guys to the training they need, and we'll also have more boots on the ground for an emergency or critical incident.
Okay, thank you. So this completes tonight's Zoom Candidates Forum. Thank you. As mentioned earlier, the Candidate Forum recordings will be available on channel 182, CurryCountyVoices.com, LWVCurry.org, LWVOR.org, and Vote411.org via YouTube. Thanks to those organizations for making them available. And the League thanks you, the candidates, for participating, and to the viewers for watching and learning about your candidates. Good night.